r/neckbeard stories by Redmond Dts. Neckbeard burns his penis. Hello. I'm using a throwaway account for this, but I have plenty of stories about one of my exes who I think was a beard. This story took place a long time ago, but I'll try and tell it accurately. My ex hated sweet food. He never kept anything sweet in the house and hadn't eaten sweets since he was a child. So one day, when he called me, crying, wanking, and covered in raspberry pudding, I was a little shocked. I asked him to explain what happened, and this was roughly what he told me through the sobs. He had got bored of using his hand to wank and thought that sticking his penis into a bowl of pudding would feel much better. So he went to the store, found the desert section, selected a victim, came home, read the instructions, made the desert, let it set in the fridge overnight, reheated it, and then stuck his member in it. An interesting thing about raspberry pudding is that at boiling point it's a liquid, when refrigerated it's a solid, and when hot or warm it's an incredibly sticky viscous substance. The combination of warm pudding and hot penis had left him covered in essentially raspberry scented super glue. Upon realizing his mistake, he started to rapidly lose his erection. However, as his penis shrank into itself, he realized that his foreskin was essentially gluing itself to the shaft. So that's how he ended up calling me, crying, covered in pudding, while desperately trying to maintain a semi. Not sure of what to do. He was fine, he just had to lay face down with his dick in the washing up bowl for a while. This story doesn't showcase much of his beardy behavior, but it gives a flavor of the type of stories I could write if people are interested. TLDR, Neckbeard sticks penis in raspberry pudding and gets burnt. Rocket penis beard. Hello, my last story got some likes, so I decided to post another about my first and only date with a beard from Tinder. We matched on the cursed app, and he asked me to come and meet him. I prefer to meet people in person early on, rather than texting, so I suggested a popular coffee shop. He said no, because he didn't drink coffee. I suggested a pub. He said he doesn't drink. I suggested bowling or the arcade. He said nah. Finally I suggested he choose a place with things that he liked. He suggested an empty park near my apartment complex. I told him I didn't feel comfortable meeting there because it's not a public location. He suggested we meet outside a crowded cafe or restaurant, as long as we didn't go inside. At this point I realized he was concerned I might expect him to buy me a cup of coffee. For the record, I wasn't expecting that. I was just a bit irked because he could have just asked to split the bill. Eventually I agreed to this, not sure why, and I came to meet him. I had a shift before our date, and I told him the time I would be available. He texted me he was leaving his house right before I left work, and I told him I'll see him soon. He arrived at the location half an hour early, then texted me that I was late. I corrected him, and he said, well, I told you I was leaving. Why didn't you come sooner if you knew I was coming? I pointed out I have no idea where he lives or how long it would take him to get there, and I was very clear about my shift finish time. I turned up already pissed off because he kept texting me every 2 minutes about where I was. I nearly turned around and went home. I arrived and was looking for a tall athletic guy with short hair and a beard. I looked around and didn't see anyone matching that description. There were 3 guys playing basketball nearby, and they asked if I was looking for someone. I told them yeah, and gave them a brief description. They looked a bit confused at each other and said there was a guy who arrived about half an hour earlier who was sat on a bench nearby. I looked where they pointed, and sitting right there was a guy who looked nothing like his profile picture. There is nothing wrong with a person's looks changing, but there is something wrong with using pictures so old that you are unrecognizable. He had been sat there the entire time, watching me look for him. Wearing dark sunglasses, trying to strike a seductive pose on a bench. As I got closer, I realized he was wearing gray sweats and a disgusting fleece jacket in the hot summer heat. He smelled like BO and old food. He had a patchy beard that had been filled in with acne, poorly cared for teeth, and one of those anime keychains clipped to the zip of his sweaty fleece. I approached, not even sure if this was the right guy. He took off his glasses and introduced himself. He then told me I was late. The mannerisms and tone of this was supposed to look like a stoic anime businessman character. But he just looked cringe in his $2 plastic glasses and stained sweats. I corrected him again, slightly ruder this time, and also pointed out that he had watched me look for him this whole told and not said anything. I work with kids. I know how to use the "I'm very disappointed in you" voice, and he apologized. We sat on the bench for about 5 minutes talking. He told me he loved anime, games, and Japanese music. He also told me he went on the date because I looked like a character from a game he likes. He then tried to adjust my top, touch my boobs. I told him to not touch me. He sat next to me and behaved, but kept trying to cuddle me, and I kept reinforcing my boundaries. He asked to kiss me, and I said no. I just wanted to make this date last at least 20 minutes, so I could leave without feeling too bad. He then kept trying to initiate a kiss, even though I told him I wasn't interested. I could smell his teeth every time he got close. Not food in his teeth. His actual teeth smelled like cavities. When 20 minutes were up, I told him I have to go, and we both stood up to leave. When he stood up, I realized he had an erection. He was fully hard, in a public place. Surrounded by people. I went to walk away, and he tried to follow me, and asked to give me a ride home. I told him that I could see his erection, and to leave me alone. He said, "Haha, I'm sorry, my dick is like a rocket ship." I knew the punchline would be something like, "because it goes up so fast," but being angry I asked him, "So are you telling me your penis is deformed?" He shouted back at me, "I don't have a deformed penis," in a public park, surrounded by children. Thank you for reading. TLDR, Neckbeard definitely gets an erection on a first date. Gymbeard and his waifu. I was dating this guy for like a month. I like nerdy guys, so when I saw his pictures, my first thought was it might be a gym bro thing, which I'm personally rarely into if that's really the main passion or hobby, because I just can't relate at all. But then I read in his bio that he was very into nerdy stuff, Warhammer, live action roleplay, video games, manga, you named it. He super liked me, and I was intrigued, so we matched and started seeing each other. I won't shame the guy for his nerdy hobbies. Like I said, I actually like that, and I don't think that's what makes him a neckbeard. I'll focus on the cringy, creepy and funny stuff, but I wanna add as a side note, he did have a katana. Beware the katana ladies, I only know one genuinely cool guy who has it, and that surely isn't him. The neckbeard traits were a bit more subtle the first 4 dates. It was a bit much, and a bit cringy, that he described himself as a lone wolf, said he loved darkness and always had rotating dramatic drawings of sulking knights as his profile pics, as a grown man who turns 28 next week. It was giving edgy teenager, but I looked past that. The breaking point that was so creepy and random was on our 5th date, second time I slept over. We were cuddling in bed after we woke up, when with no warning, no intimate touching, no eye contact, no nothing, he started jerking off while he had his arm around me. I laid there in dead silence, unsure how to react. I brought it up after breakfast, and he just said his ex was into it, and it was my fault for not stopping him. Or I could have joined in, since his body is a buffet. I talked to my closest friends about it, and they validated my feeling that he should have asked, since it was so random. And I politely texted him about it, explaining how I felt, and that I think we need to communicate consent differently in the future, and that we can talk about that the next time I see him, and he ghosted me. But that's where the best part came in. Right after he ghosted me, he put a K and an infinity sign in his Insta bio, and sure enough a couple days later, he posted a story of a doodle of Princess Kidda from Atlantis, his favorite Disney movie, in his story, saying, "I think she's cute," then proceeded to frame the doodle, put it on his desk, and putting that in a highlight. He titled "I love you" in Japanese characters. This 27-year-old man has an imaginary waifu to deal with how I politely called him out for wanking next to me out of the blue. Oh, and he also has a new passion project every 2 business days. He wanted to be a streamer, a podcaster, then an author. Now he wants to make his own manga. How did he pull you though? I dunno. He's really funny and tall, and not bad looking, and I like nerdy guys to an extent. Plus he made it very clear he's looking for something serious, and with how a lot of guys avoid commitment, like it's the plague, that sadly put him way up there at first too. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.